The courtroom fell silent. All eyes turned toward Maya Carter, her hands clenched into fists as the officer's iron grip tightened around her arm. "You don't belong here," he growled, his breath hot against her ear. The words dripped with disdain, not just for her presence, but for everything she represented. Maya refused to back down. "Let go of me," she said through gritted teeth, her voice calm but unwavering. The officer didn't loosen his grip. Instead, he pulled harder. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge, seated high above, remained motionless, expression unreadable. The corporate lawyers on the opposing bench exchanged smug glances as if they had already won. Just as Maya braced herself to resist, her phone vibrated in her pocket. A single buzz, then another. The persistent hum cut through the tension in the room. Instinctively, she glanced down. The screen glowed bright with an incoming call. Her breath caught in her throat. One word: White House. The officer froze. The judge finally shifted. The entire courtroom held its breath. Maya's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she reached for the phone. Everything was about to change. Maya Carter stood at the plaintiff's table, her presence commanding yet composed. A fierce civil rights attorney, she had spent years fighting for justice. But this case was different. It wasn't just another lawsuit. It was a battle against power itself. She had spent months gathering evidence, exposing a multi-billion-dollar corporation for systematically discriminating against black employees. The trial had already rattled powerful figures, and today was supposed to be a turning point until the interruption happened. The heavy courtroom doors creaked open, and a uniformed officer strode in. The room buzzed with confusion as he walked directly toward Maya. "You need to leave. Now," he said, his voice firm. Maya frowned. "Excuse me?" "You're a security threat," he stated bluntly. "You're coming with me." The word sent a shockwave through the courtroom. Security threat? What kind of excuse was that? Maya straightened her shoulders. On what grounds? The judge refused to meet her gaze. The opposing corporate lawyers didn't even bother to hide their self-satisfied smirks. Something was very, very wrong. "I'm not leaving," Maya said, standing her ground. The officer's jaw tightened. He reached for her arm, gripping it tightly. Then her phone buzzed. A single vibration, then another. Maya glanced down. The screen flashed. White House. The officer froze. The entire courtroom held its breath. Maya's pulse pounded in her ears as she hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "This is Maya Carter," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. A deep, authoritative voice responded. "Ms. Carter, do not resist. The officer is to stand down immediately. Hand him the phone." Maya lifted her gaze to the officer, who still had a firm grip on her arm. "Take it," she said. The officer hesitated before snatching the phone. As he pressed it to his ear, his entire demeanor shifted. His face paled, his grip slackened. "Yes, sir, understood." He handed the phone back with a sharp nod, then turned on his heel and walked out. The courtroom was stunned into silence. The judge finally spoke. "Ms. Carter, we'll take a recess." Maya didn't move. Neither did the corporate lawyers, though their smug confidence had been replaced with unease. Within seconds, two men in dark suits entered the courtroom, scanning the room like they were looking for threats. One approached Maya and spoke quietly. "Come with us, now." She should have been scared, but she had no choice. She was escorted out, not by force, but under mysterious orders. The second she stepped into the hallway, she felt it, the weight of unseen eyes watching her every move. The black SUV moved swiftly through the streets of D.C., turning down an unmarked side road before pulling into an underground parking structure. "Where are we going?" Maya asked, tension coiling in her stomach. No response. The door finally opened, revealing a dimly lit government office. Inside, a high-ranking official, A man she recognized from the news but whose name she couldn't place, stood waiting. "Maya Carter," he said, folding his hands behind his back. "You have no idea what you've stepped into." "I know enough," she shot back. "That corporation—" He cut her off. "That corporation is just the surface of something much deeper." Maya narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" The official exhaled, then slid a folder across the desk. "The company you're fighting in court isn't just guilty of discrimination. They've been funneling illegal funds into political campaigns, millions of dollars. In exchange, they've bought protection at the highest levels of government, law enforcement, and the judicial system." Maya flipped open the folder. Names, dates, bank transactions. The weight of it hit her like a freight train. "This," she murmured, "this is treason." The official nodded. "And now that you're getting too close, they want you silenced." Maya felt the ground shift beneath her. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and they painted a terrifying picture. The corporation wasn't just guilty, it was protected by judges, by politicians, by the very system she was trying to fight. And now they were coming for her. Her phone buzzed. A message. "Unknown number. Drop the case or you're next." A chill ran down her spine, and then the final blow. Her key witness disappeared. He had been scheduled to testify the next morning. The last person to see him was a uniformed officer, but no record of his arrest existed. He had simply vanished. By the time Maya left the government office, fear had taken on a new form. She wasn't just fighting a legal case anymore. She was in a war. She barely made it a few blocks when she noticed the black SUV trailing behind her. It wasn't the first time. At every stoplight, the vehicle remained just far enough behind to seem casual, yet close enough to let her know it was watching. Maya tightened her grip on the wheel and took a sharp turn down a side street. The SUV followed. Her hands trembled. Her world was unraveling, and she was losing control of the thread. She finally reached her office, slamming the door shut behind her, only to freeze in place. The room was ransacked, papers scattered, drawers left open, files missing. Everything related to the case gone. She backed away slowly, pulse hammering in her chest. A single sheet of paper remained on her desk. One sentence scrawled in black ink. "Someone close to you is working against you." Maya stood there, gripping the edge of her desk as nausea churned in her stomach. Someone inside her circle had betrayed her. Could it be her assistant, Rachel, the one who had access to all her files? Or was it Daniel, her mentor? He had been acting strange lately, urging her to settle the case rather than fight it. Who else knew her every move? Who was feeding information to the enemy? For the first time in her career, Maya felt alone. She had fought against powerful opponents before, but this time the enemy was everywhere, watching, listening, waiting for her to fall. But she wasn't going to fall. Maya took a deep breath and clenched her fists. They wanted her to be afraid. They wanted her to stop. But if they thought she would back down, they didn't know who they were dealing with. She grabbed her bag and stormed out of the office. It was time to go on the offensive. The air in the underground parking garage was thick with silence. The dim, flickering fluorescent lights cast long, eerie shadows against the concrete walls. Maya gripped her car keys tightly as she approached her vehicle, her senses on high alert. She wasn't alone. She could feel it, the weight of unseen eyes tracking her every move. She quickened her pace. Then, a sharp click of dress shoes echoed from behind. She spun around. Two men in black suits emerged from the shadows. No expressions, no hesitation. They were here for her. "Miss Carter," the taller one said, his voice smooth but laced with warning. "You need to walk away from this case. It's in your best interest." Maya's pulse pounded, but she didn't back down. "If you're trying to intimidate me, you're wasting your time." The second man smirked. You don't understand, do you? He took a step forward. The last person who got too close, he disappeared, just like that. He snapped his fingers. Poof. Maya clenched her fist. The missing witness. Anger flared in her chest. What did you do to him? The taller man exhaled, almost disappointed. Drop the case, Ms. Carter. This is bigger than you. I'm not stopping. A brief pause. Then they moved. The taller man lunged first, reaching for her arm. Maya ducked, using her elbow to slam into his ribs. He stumbled back, surprised by her resistance. The second man grabbed her by the wrist, twisting it. Pain shot up her arm, but she retaliated, driving her knee into his stomach. He cursed, releasing her, but before she could escape, the first man recovered and swung. His fist clipped her shoulder, sending her staggering back against a concrete pillar. Maya gasped for air. They were trained. The second man moved fast, grabbing her again, this time pinning her against the cold concrete. She struggled, but he was stronger. The taller man stepped forward, breathing heavily. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a gun. Maya froze. This is your last warning, he said, voice low. Walk away, or you won't walk at all. She braced herself. Then suddenly, a blaring security alarm shattered the silence. The men flinched. Red emergency lights flooded the garage. A voice boomed over the intercom. Security breach detected. Maya didn't hesitate. She kicked backwards, slamming her heel into her captor's knee. He shouted in pain as she ripped free. The taller man hesitated just a second too long, his eyes flicking toward the flashing security cameras. Then they were gone. Just like that. They vanished into the shadows, disappearing between parked cars as the security alarm wailed into the night. Maya collapsed against her car, her breath ragged, her heart hammering. What the hell just happened? As she steadied herself, her eyes landed on something. Near where the men had been standing, a small USB drive lay on the ground. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. It had a label. 2 words. Project Shadow. A chill ran down Maya's spine. She had just stumbled into something far bigger than she ever imagined. Maya locked the door behind her and sat at her desk, staring at the USB drive labeled Project Shadow. Her hands trembled as she plugged it into her laptop. The screen flickered. A black window popped up, asking for a decryption key. She took a deep breath. Think, Maya. She tried a few variations of legal terms, corporate names, and dates related to the case, but nothing worked. Then she tried the name of the missing witness. The screen blinked. Access granted. Lines of encrypted text unfurled before her eyes. As she pieced them together, Maya's stomach twisted into knots. The corruption was deeper than she ever imagined. The corporation wasn't just guilty of racial discrimination. They had been funneling millions into political campaigns, bribing judges, paying off law enforcement, and rigging trials. Her case wasn't just about civil rights anymore. It was about power, money, and the absolute control of justice itself. And she had walked right into the middle of it. Maya barely had time to process the information before her phone buzzed, a restricted number. She hesitated, then answered. A disguised voice spoke. You're not safe, Maya. Someone close to you is feeding them information. A chill ran down her spine. Who? She demanded. Silence. Then, click. The call ended. Maya's mind raced. Someone in her inner circle was working against her. Her thoughts immediately turned to her mentor, Daniel West, a respected civil rights leader who had always been her guide in the legal world. But lately, he had been acting strange. He had warned her against pushing too hard. He had even suggested she settle the case. Was he trying to protect her, or was he working for them? Before she could make sense of it, her office door creaked open. She turned sharply, only to find her assistant, Rachel, standing there, her face pale. Maya, Rachel's voice wavered. You're safe. It's been broken into. Maya's blood ran cold. She rushed to the small hidden safe behind her bookshelf. The door hung open, the lock twisted and broken. The folder containing the most critical piece of evidence, the one that could bury the corporation, was gone. A wave of nausea hit her, and then the final blow. Her office phone rang. When she answered, a voice sneered, "Tampering with evidence is a serious crime, Ms. Carter." The line went dead. She had been framed. The next morning, the media storm hit. Maya Carter accused of evidence tampering. Is her case falling apart? Rogue attorney or political pawn? The real story behind the controversial trial. High-stakes lawsuit or personal vendetta? How Maya Carter's case is unraveling. Her face was plastered across every news station. The corporation's PR team had spun the story brilliantly. Suddenly, she wasn't the fearless civil rights attorney fighting for justice. She was a desperate lawyer, willing to manipulate evidence to win. Online trolls flooded her social media with hate messages, death threats, and accusations. People she had once trusted stopped answering her calls. Even the judge overseeing the case announced that a review of her conduct was underway. They weren't just trying to discredit her, they were trying to destroy her. Maya sat in her darkened apartment, staring at the chaos unfolding on the news. The weight of it all pressed down on her. The missing witness, the stolen evidence, the betrayal, the public humiliation. She was running out of moves. Then her phone buzzed. Another restricted number. She hesitated, then answered. A heavily disguised voice whispered, "Meet me at midnight. I can help you expose the truth." Maya's heart pounded. Who's this? Silence. Then, before the line cut off, "Come alone." Maya clenched her jaw. It could be a trap, or it could be the only chance she had left. Maya stood before the packed courtroom, her heart pounding as she prepared for the most important argument of her career. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a battle for the truth. She took a steadying breath and turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I have irrefutable evidence that this corporation has been engaging in systematic corruption at the highest levels of government." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. The corporate lawyers exchanged nervous glances, but their lead counsel, a smug, well-paid shark named Vincent Hawthorne, stood unfazed. Maya continued, holding up a stack of documents. These files, recently obtained, show how corporate executives funneled millions into political campaigns, bribed law enforcement officials, and manipulated the judicial system to avoid accountability. She turned to the jury. This company didn't just discriminate against its employees. It bought silence, destroyed careers, and even made people disappear. Gasps rippled through the room. Hawthorne stood, straightening his tie. "Objection. This is a desperate stunt by an attorney whose case is falling apart." Maya didn't flinch. She slid a USB drive onto the evidence table. This drive contains encrypted financial transactions, proof of payoffs to politicians, judges, and high-ranking officials. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment. The jury members exchanged stunned looks. The judge's gavel slammed. "Order! Order!" But Hawthorne wasn't done. He turned to the judge, his voice smooth and confident. "Your Honor, Ms. Carter has engaged in illegal evidence tampering and is attempting to present fabricated documents." He pointed a sharp finger at her. "I move for her immediate arrest under contempt of court and obstruction of justice." Maya's blood ran cold. The judge's gaze darkened. "Ms. Carter, unless you have absolute proof of these claims, I have no choice but to hold you in contempt." The bailiff stepped forward, reaching for his cuffs. Maya refused to panic. She had come too far to be silenced now. Then the doors burst open. A team of federal agents stormed into the courtroom. Their presence sent an electric jolt through the room. The lead agent, a stern-looking man in a dark suit, held up a badge. "Stand down," This courtroom is now under federal jurisdiction. The judge hesitated, his grip tightening on his gavel. What is the meaning of this? The agent's next words sent a shockwave through the courtroom. We are acting under direct orders from the White House. Hawthorne's smug confidence vanished. The corporate executive stiffened. The air thickened with fear. Then, a voice came through a live feed set up in the courtroom, a voice that made everyone go silent. The president. Maya Carter, the voice said, clear and firm. I've been monitoring your case, and let me be absolutely clear. The truth will not be silenced. Gasps filled the room. Cameras flashed wildly. The world was watching. The lead agent stepped forward. Under executive authority, we are placing multiple individuals under arrest for fraud, bribery, and conspiracy against the government. The courtroom erupted into a frenzy as federal agents moved in. One by one, the guilty parties were handcuffed and led away. The CEO of the corporation, his face pale as he barked at his lawyers to fix this. Two senior government officials, their names directly linked to secret payments on the USB drive. A high-ranking judge who had been quietly dismissing lawsuits against the corporation for years. Maya exhaled sharply as she watched justice take its course. The judge, visibly shaken, turned to her. Ms. Carter, he said, his voice softer now, it appears I owe you an apology. She straightened her shoulders. An apology won't fix the damage they've done, she said. The judge nodded. No, but I can do one thing. He turned to the jury and dismissed all charges against Maya. The gavel slammed one last time. Case dismissed. A wave of cheers erupted from the gallery. Reporters rushed forward. The jury exchanged satisfied looks. Maya closed her eyes for just a second, feeling the weight of it all. She had won, but something deep in her gut told her this wasn't over yet. The fallout was immediate and seismic. The corporation's CEO, senior officials, and complicit judges were all taken into custody. Within hours, their bank accounts were frozen, assets seized, and offices raided by federal agents. By morning, headlines dominated the news cycle. Major corporate scandal exposed, high-profile arrests made. Maya Carter's stunning legal victory shakes the nation. Bribery, conspiracy, and political corruption. How deep does it go? Maya, once vilified by the media, was now hailed as a hero. She had done what few dared, taken on the system, and won. But as she stood outside the courthouse, the roar of reporters, supporters, and flashing cameras all around her, she felt no triumph. The cost of victory was etched deep inside her. She had lost trust in people she once believed in, her mentor, her colleagues, even her own team. Anyone could have been the traitor. She had spent months dodging threats, watching over her shoulder, fearing for her life. And then there were the ones who hadn't made it, the missing witness, the silent voices who were erased before they could speak. The system was still broken, but today she had put a crack in it. She straightened her shoulders, inhaled deeply, and whispered a vow to herself. This fight isn't over. As Maya pushed through the crowd, the sunlight hit her face, a sharp contrast to the darkness she had been battling. Reporters shouted questions, supporters chanted her name, but then something else caught her eye. Across the street, a black SUV idled by the curb. A shadowy figure sat inside, watching her. Maya's breath hitched. Was it a warning, a new threat, or something worse? Before she could move, the engine rumbled to life. The SUV pulled away, disappearing into traffic. Maya watched it go, her pulse steady, her mind already racing. This wasn't over, not even close. The screen fades to black. A car engine revs in the distance. Just as the judge raised his gavel, ready to order Maya's arrest, the bailiff stepped forward, cuffs in hand. The courtroom erupted in chaos, corporate lawyers smirking, the opposition celebrating. Maya's heart pounded. Was this how it ended? Then the doors burst open. Federal agents stormed in. The entire room froze. And then, over the courtroom speakers, a voice rang out. A voice everyone recognized. The president. That's when everything changed. But before I reveal who's really behind this conspiracy, hit subscribe, because the truth will leave you speechless.